Bitcoin hits an all-time high as Donald Trump is sworn in as the next United States president. Will he deliver on his pro-crypto promises? We cover all this right now in the Collective Shift weekly recap, actionable insights, and a breakdown into the crypto market, all in under 30 minutes. Let's get into it with, of course, a market update. As I just said off the top, Bitcoin celebrating an all-time high of nearly 110,000 US dollars. It crept up to 109,000 slightly before the inauguration earlier this week, and it has since retraced slightly, so we'll get into that. We did really see it rally over the weekend, particularly late last week after some macroeconomic data came out in the US regarding inflation, and the results of that were really that inflation was in line with expectations. You tend to see a sell-off as the market gets nervous that, inflation, if it does become resurgent, would be a very bearish factor for the market. In fact, a lot of the discussion I'm hearing, if there is a big reason for a sell-off or maybe a premature end to this bull market, one of the most popular reasons I'm hearing is that out of control inflation comes ramping back. So that's why when we saw that print come out last week and it was in line with expectations, I think you saw a relief rally off that. And that continued into the weekend. And as you can see on your screen there, surpassing 109,000 US dollars briefly over the weekend, heading into the inauguration. Around that time, there was also some news reports coming out that there were likely, Donald Trump was going to be, signing some executive orders related to crypto in his opening day or two in office. So that was another reason why we saw price rallying. But yeah, speaking of that inauguration, there's really, that's the only thing really worth talking about this week. To be fair, I might touch on some other things that I believe are relevant, but really, for the most part, I think all the market is looking at the Trump administration and what they're doing in terms of their crypto promises. Are they going to deliver on them? There's still fears out there. There had been fears that, hey, maybe the Trump administration was just stringing along the crypto space, just sort of taking their votes, but then forgetting about them by the time they get into office. That's not really what we saw in the opening day or two, with Trump in office. I think there was a sentiment around the crypto market. They were hoping for more, as you tend to see with the impatient nature of crypto investors. There were a lot of people expecting, fireworks on the opening day. But of course, Trump did still end up signing dozens of executive orders. However, none of them were related to crypto on his opening day in office. So you actually saw a bit of a sell-off there, in the market. And that has since, again, rebounded. I think after people have realized, hey, maybe we're looking too far into this opening day. Really, as I said last week, I think the opening sort of few days to a week is the most important. I'll give some price predictions even at the end of this episode in terms of where I think prices will go, in either scenario, in terms of what Trump does or does not do this week. So really, to recap Inauguration Day, I don't really want to waste too much time going over it. I think a lot of you would have seen the highlights and whatnot. There was not really that much to do with crypto. I think some investors, were a bit frustrated that Trump didn't really mention crypto in his inauguration speech. As I get up my screen here, we did sort of see the headline from CoinDesk. Yeah, that did cause a bit of selling, but for all intents and purposes, it was more just a celebration of Trump, becoming president. He did sign some things that he said he would sign in relation to other matters. But really, if I'm being honest, for crypto investors, there wasn't really that much to note from Inauguration Day. We did see at the end of Inauguration Day, or I guess the day after, so Trump's first full business day in office, we did see one particular development in the crypto space, which I'll get to a bit later. But really, I think why haven't we sold off more, I think is a fair question people might be wondering. I think once you saw, if I were to tell you, Trump was not going to say anything about crypto on his opening day, his inauguration speech, we had been talking about how much the high expectations were baked into the price of crypto heading into the inauguration. So look, if I was to tell you that he didn't really do anything on the opening day, I would have expected given the impatient nature of crypto investors, I would have expected a deeper or a steeper crash in prices, heading back into five figures, so below 100,000. But we didn't see that. So really, at the time of recording, we're at about 106,000 US dollars per Bitcoin, and nothing has really been mentioned yet about crypto. So given that's the nature of where we're at, I'm actually, quite positive that we will get some announcements this week, because otherwise I would have thought prices would have been quite a bit lower. So yeah, the market is still a bit optimistic that there will be announcements this week, and I think the price sort of signals that. So yeah, I'll get into it a bit later where I expect prices to go if we don't, the worst case scenario unfolds. But yeah, really nothing to note otherwise in terms of inauguration. I think arguably the biggest news of the week and January in 2025, I suppose, one of the stories of the year when we look back on 2025 will be the launch of two meme coins. One that you would have seen all over the news. So for those out of the loop, when Donald Trump was still the technically president-elect, that's important for some reasons we may not have time to get into in this episode. But importantly, while he was not yet inaugurated, he did launch a meme coin. So for those that are new to crypto, don't really know what a meme coin means. It's a cryptocurrency that doesn't really have any inherent value. It's more so it's sort of a cryptocurrency that is surrounding a certain idea or a certain, narrative or made up entity that people sort of rally around. And that has a value. People are ascribing, or the market is ascribing a value to that. We do more coverage on meme coins and whatnot in other areas, of Collective Shift. You can see our website for explanations or whatnot. But, that's essentially what the whole Trump coin is. And that did rally up to, dozens of it. Yeah, I think about multiple tens of billions of dollars in market cap, which is, quite astounding to see that rise. By far, I would say I don't even think it's a stretch to say, if you're looking at the history of the crypto market, that the launch of, Trump's meme coin, I would say, would be one of the talking points when you look back at crypto's history to date. Just the significance of it in the sense of the amount of attention it drove, and the fact that an upcoming president of the biggest country in the world did that was, again, just a very big talking point, and something I think we'll look back on for years to come. We also saw Melania Trump, so the First Lady, also launch a meme coin just before the inauguration. Again, maybe an important factor there, and that didn't do as well. However, I think it's still got to about 15 billion US dollars worth of market cap. Of course, fully diluted, that is. The fully diluted, I must point out here, is it is a bit misleading in a sense, given that Trump's floating sort of circulation, a floating supply is only about 20% in the market, and Melania's is about 10% or 10 to 15% of the supply of the tokens are in circulation. So market cap, if out of the two, market cap versus FDV, market cap is a lot more, I guess, important to look at when you're talking about these two meme coins. But their tokens will start to unlock for those two particular, Trump and Melania tokens. I think Melania's vesting schedule, it activates a lot sooner than Trump's. I think Trump's is 3 months after the token sort of launch, and Melania's is 1 month from memory. So a lot of people saying these will really, the most relevance they will have, or the most value they will have as a market cap, arguably would be, before those actual vesting schedules start to activate. But we'll see how these go. I'm interested to see how Trump, in particular, the price action of Trump over his, term as president over the next 4 years. Here we are on CoinGecko, and he's already in the top 30 by market cap, which just gives you a sense of, I guess, the magnitude of this event. Notably this morning, just again, time recording, he did sort of acknowledge that the meme coin existed and heard that it had been successful, but he, sort of didn't want to comment at a press release about how much he's benefiting from it. And he sort of deflected, I suppose, the whole story, in a way, deflected it to, I guess, the actual thing that he was talking about in the press conference, before the press conference, which was about the AI founders, the United States investing heavily into three I guess, three individual sort of United States companies to really drive and spur growth in the AI sector. So he deflected it quite, as a politician does, quite in an expert manner. But yeah, I'm still interested. There's a lot you can talk about. I could probably talk about the implications of this meme coin for hours, to be honest. But yeah, one thing I'm noting is how much will Trump go out and actually talk about this meme coin, given, you know, the amount of laws and heavy regulations around presidents sort of spruiking certain projects or benefiting financially from things that they're directly involved in or associated in. You know, some might argue Trump doesn't really care about any of that anyway, so he might just ignore that and continue to sort of promote this token, which he hasn't done to date. So it's one to watch, and it's one that, for better or worse, is sort of capturing a lot of the crypto headlines, even in the mainstream at the moment. So yeah, a lot of people did well off this token, you know, becoming overnight millionaires if those people were online when this launched. And yeah, we'll see how this goes and in the coming weeks and months. But otherwise, from the past week, we have had some movement in terms of, you know, changes in key leadership in the United States, you know, government or agencies. We have seen in the SEC, so we saw Gary Gensler step down on the day of the inauguration, as he had, I think, announced in December. And we saw Hester Peirce, who has been at the SEC for a while. She has now become, you know, sort of this leader of a task force that is dedicated to, I suppose, just getting together and establishing some more, I guess, alignment in terms of what crypto regulations should look like. So that was ordered by the acting chair, Mark Ueda, who's also been at the SEC for a while and is relatively pro-crypto. He's now the acting chair while they look for who will replace Gary Gensler. And really, I think this task force is another great step. You actually saw crypto prices. This is important, actually. And I think if I'm talking about why prices haven't sold off as heavily as they otherwise may have, given the silence we saw from Trump on day one and day two since his inauguration, this was, in my opinion, a key reason why prices have remained in those six-figure territory. We actually saw prices rally after this news came out about this crypto task force, given the SEC's relationship with crypto under Gensler, very hostile. So, you know, the fact that they're getting this task force together indicates that, hey, we may get some progress in terms of the relationship between the US crypto industry and the prospects of the market, indirectly related to that, and their connection with the US government. So as we can see here, this task force is focusing on developing a comprehensive and clear regulatory framework for crypto assets. So yeah, one to definitely watch throughout Q1. I'm keen to see more updates out of this task force, and it can definitely be a price sensitive, I suppose, series of developments that come out of this. So yeah, that's what I'm definitely keen to be looking at. Another one we saw, I suppose not as important for the market, but still, the CFTC, which is another similar power, I suppose, another agency or a commission technically in the US that takes care of all things commodities, which some people argue cryptocurrencies are. So like the SEC, we've also got an acting head of that. So Trump has nominated their Caroline Pham to be the acting CFTC chair. So we have 210 days for there to be a permanent replacement. So similar there with Mark Ueda, and then same here for Caroline Pham as well. We also saw, this was the only crypto sort of related executive order that was announced since Trump has been inaugurated, and it is something that Trump previously promised. So Ross Ulbricht, so the founder of the Silk Road, sort of the dark web marketplace that got caught out in the early 2010s, and was sentenced to two lifetime sentences in the US. He's been in jail or in prison for 11 or 12 years so far, and he was confirmation came out just a few hours ago that, there's an executive order where he's been pardoned, so he will be released from prison. And that was seen as a win for those who've been advocating for his release, in over the years. Some people arguing or the argument has been that, hey, this is just like very unjust, this length for getting 2 lifetime sentences. When you look at some other crimes other crimes that don't really get, any prison time. So, people saying it was unjust, and Trump did promise, in his election campaign that he would free Ross Ulbricht on day one. So there was a bit of disappointment when day one came to a close and this executive order didn't come through. But at the end of technically what was Trump's first full day full business day as president, he did call Ross Ulbricht's mother and announce that the pardon had been signed. So that has been the only crypto related sort of actionable from Trump in his first 48 hours or even 36 hours as president. And why does even the Ross Ulbricht, at face value, this doesn't really have anything to do with prices or investors' sort of interest in crypto. However, I would actually encourage any crypto investors. I don't believe I'm reading too heavily into this when I say that this Ross Ulbricht news definitely has implications for crypto investors, because it's a promise kept by the Trump administration. Sure, it was, slightly one day, it bled into the next day in terms of this promise Trump delivered. However, it does signal that, hey, Trump does care somewhat about, pleasing and delivering on his crypto-friendly promises. Of course, this was one of the several sort of promises that Trump made. So the fact that this has happened, to me as a crypto investor and someone who, has been living and breathing this space for 7 years, this is very promising to see, in my opinion, when you're looking at the market outlook. Because it signals that Trump is very likely, in my opinion, to continue with his crypto-related executive orders, hopefully this week, at the very least in the first 100 days. But, I would be hoping and I do expect there to be at least one other crypto-related executive order this week, and then multiple over the course of, call it the next month, but technically the first 100 days. So, we can get into some of my thoughts as well in terms of, scenarios. I think for the whole market right now, we're all wondering, okay, people have been buying and getting excited as Trump was, won the election in early November, people buying throughout November and December in anticipation of Trump's inauguration. Now that's happened, and now the whole market the dust is settling, and people are wondering, hey, what is the next short-term, bullish or bearish outlook for crypto? Has everything sort of happened? And to that, I certainly don't expect I don't expect the end of the bull market to be anytime in the very, very near term future. I think there are still many reasons to be excited in 2025 as a crypto investor, and more specifically to Donald Trump and what happens, in the next week or two. I'm expecting there to be some executive orders. The ones off the top of my head I would like to see the most is just more information about a strategic Bitcoin reserve. In particular, is Donald Trump going to say, hey, I ordered the US government to purchase Bitcoin off the open market, or the treasury of the US government to do that? Or is he going to say, hey, we're going to hold the existing Bitcoin that we have confiscated and we're going to promise the public not to sell that? So that strategic Bitcoin reserve and the establishment of that, that's the one I personally am most excited for, and that's the one I believe is the most price sensitive. So that hopefully is being delivered in the next few days before the week is over. Another sort of one that I'm keen to see would be the establishment of a crypto sort of working party, sort of similar to what we have in the SEC with a task force. I would really like to see, and there's been news reports that this will be coming in the first few days of Trump's administration, and that is a working group essentially of crypto experts and industry participants, where they are involved in a working group to work alongside key policymakers, to draft up some really, I suppose, sensible regulatory, draft up some legislation and work with lawmakers to figure out how crypto can thrive in the US, as Donald Trump has promised in his election campaign. So if something like that, such as the establishment of a of a working group or something like that comes out as an executive order, that would also be, very bullish from my perspective. So they are two that I'm expecting, but we have to sort of also entertain a scenario of all scenarios, of course. So I think if we get an executive order to buy spot Bitcoin, I don't think it's outlandish to think that Bitcoin can go above 140,000 US dollars very quickly. So honestly, that in a best case scenario, that could happen by the end of the week. If there is an order to do a strategic reserve, but not buying Bitcoin off the open market, so just keeping the US government's existing holdings, I do think we rally from here. If there's no executive orders at all, like honestly, I think that's a very, very bad scenario. From my vent, like I don't see that happening at all, but hey, it's a possibility. And then also we've got just some vague sort of promises to promote crypto in the US. If that does happen, look, I expect us to hold above 100,000, but I definitely don't see us going on this crazy, rally in the next week or so I'm talking about. So yeah, a lot to sort of come out between now and I guess the first week of Trump's presidency. But certainly it has been a very eventful week and something where a lot of people have lost a lot of sleep between all the Memecoin action happening with Melania and Trump, and then sort of, staying up for all of the executive orders, which happened very late in the US, for some people. So yeah, it's been a very big week. There hasn't honestly been many other newsworthy, news that's worthy of your time. I don't want to really waste your time in terms of trying to figure out or find other news to talk about. Of course, in crypto, there's news going 24/7, but yeah, nothing of significance to report on, in my opinion. There were some altcoin related news, from the past week. In particular, I think Ethereum has sort of been under the microscope a bit. You've seen promises from Vitalik sort of statements from Vitalik suggesting that there may be some leadership changes coming up in the Ethereum Foundation. And there's also just been, in general, more requests from, I guess, the Ethereum community for changes to be made at the Ethereum Foundation, which traditionally has been very pro-decentralization and has not really been a centralized body which can grow and I guess coordinate a lot quicker and more effectively than other projects such as Solana and Sui, which everyone has always known that all of these years. There's pros and cons to that organizational structure. But I suppose, there's been continued criticism of what's happening at the Ethereum Foundation. I don't really see it as that big of a deal in terms of, I think a lot of the Ethereum Foundation, criticisms are quite overblown, but that may just be my naivety of not looking into it as closely as I should be. But I certainly know the selling of the ETH is something I really don't think is a big deal when you look at the dollar value of it. I think it's quite overblown, but it was promising to see the Ethereum Foundation they actually started this week to use some of their ETH treasury in the DeFi, in various DeFi protocols. And so that was a promising start, something that they've been, I suppose people have been asking them to do or wondering why the actual body that's sort of steering the whole ecosystem isn't even participating in any of the protocols or apps built on top of, the underlying Ethereum blockchain. So it was promising to see them start to use their treasury, in various DeFi applications, but overall, I just see the valuation of ETH and relative to other ones like Solana and Sui, and I don't really have any strong opinions on why Ethereum isn't growing quicker. I think it's still it's still developing and progressing. I think as a long-term investment, I'm still quite confident on it, but it can be frustrating in the short term when it's losing out to those fast-growing competitors. But otherwise, any other altcoin updates? The only one would be World Liberty Financial. So the project associated or that has a loose connection with the Trump family and Donald Trump, the president now. They're not formally associated with them, but they are involved in an indirect sort of way. With some of the brothers, the Trump brothers, like Eric Trump and Donald Trump Jr. being sort of advocates for for the actual project itself. And they did buy various altcoins off the open market, such as Athena, Tron was one of them. I think Aave was another. And you saw ETH actually being purchased, around 50 million US dollars was purchased, by the World Liberty Financial Treasury in celebration of the inauguration of Donald Trump. So expect more from World Liberty Financial, especially now that Trump has been sworn in. I would expect there to be more eyeballs and more, I guess, the metrics or growth metrics from World Liberty Financial once it does actually launch, versus a scenario where the Democrats won. I think World Liberty Financial really would have not even gotten out of the gate, to be honest, but there's not really much known yet formally about what this project exactly will be or what its grand vision is in the long term. But I think you'll be hearing a lot more about it throughout 2025. That's for sure. Otherwise, in terms of what to look forward to, I don't really want to waste your time or direct your attention elsewhere. I think it's all about staying focused on what happens in the first week or so of Trump's inauguration. Or since Trump's inauguration. Again, if there's just nothing about crypto, that would cause a sell-off, and I think we go below 100,000 for Bitcoin, and all of the altcoins I suspect would actually fall, a lot more than Bitcoin, of course, as they tend to do, to the upside or downside. However, I don't think that happens. My base case is that these executive orders do come out before the end of the week. One's hopefully to do with the strategic Bitcoin reserve, and I do expect prices to continue climbing higher. But we'll see next week if that short-term outlook, proves to be true. Certainly within the first 100 days of Trump's administration, I do expect there to be, multiple crypto executive orders. So, hey, if we do have to wait a bit longer than a week, so be it. But I think the market is very, anticipating quite strongly that there will be something in the next few days. So we'll see if that happens. In terms of rapid fire or overappreciated or underappreciated for this week, as I go up on my screen here, there was other altcoin news from quite a well-known project, that is Solana. Again, we had all the attention on the Trump administration and all of that, and I really didn't see much discussion or even awareness, to be honest, of this idea of lowering Solana's inflation rate. Solana has, obviously, as many of you know, been one of the fastest growing projects in the space for some time now. And arguably they are overpaying for security. So Solana's inflation rate is quite high relative to other projects that are valued at a similar, or that have a similar valuation. So for a long time, we've had calls for Solana's inflation to be lowered, because at its current rate of inflation, it's, in many people's opinion, including mine, to be honest, it's hurting Solana's price, or it's sort of capping its price growth. So Solana's inflation is so high that there's always this constant sell side pressure on Solana, and therefore it sort of restricts it from growing in price, quite fast and quite astronomically. So that's never really possible with this current inflation rate, in my opinion, which, depending on how you measure it, can be around 6 to even 10% annually, with things like MEV rewards. But pure basis, sometimes it's around 5 or 6 on an annual basis, Solana's inflation, which is very high compared to ETH, which is, nearly zero. And Bitcoin's, of course, is in between, I think 0 and 1% annually. So Solana's is very high and calls for it to lower. I think why you should pay attention to this is, if this does have some legs, this proposal, if it does get community support and looks like it's going to pass, I would expect Solana's price, which hit all-time highs just earlier this week, $290 it tapped around the time of the Trump Memecoin Mania. If this does gain some legs, this proposal, then I would expect price of Solana to reflect that, and there to be some price growth in Solana itself. So that's something that I saw as being a very underrated aspect of, I guess, the whole crypto space this week, given the inauguration of Donald Trump. But That's it for this week. Nick will be back with me next week, back off a break. And yeah, we'll see what happens in the next few days. It's a very exciting time in the space for sure. And we'll be covering it as a community at Collective Shift for our members, and also in the podcast next week. So if you want more from our offering about what we do here at Collective Shift, we do have our weekly newsletter as well, which you can access every Friday for free. So you can subscribe to that at collectiveshift.io/newsletter. That's collectiveshift.io/newsletter.